Welcome back. Let's dive into the most pressing matters in Parliament with our Thursday MP panel. Karen Vecchio is a Conservative MP from London, Ontario. Rachel Blaney is an NDP MP hailing from BC, and Matt DeCourcey is our Liberal MP from New Brunswick, not Ontario. Okay, let's start off with something that happened in the House yesterday. This motion and this standing ovation for abortion rights, let's call it there, just to make it a little bit briefer. And so everybody stood up. There was a standing ovation, except the Conservatives. Am I right?
Correct.
Yes. So what are we to make of that? Let me ask you that, Karen. What are we to make of that?
Well, I'm a proud Conservative, and I'm also a proud pro-choice person. I chose not to stand up at that time because I think that this conversation is much greater than that. I know young women and girls who have had these abortions. It's not something that we should take lightly. I look at the way that was dealt with, and I just sit there and I think, listen, this was just about, on principle, I could not stand up. This was about political points. This was about virtue signaling. For me, it's a much greater discussion than that, and it's a very, very divisive issue as well. But as a pro-choice person, and it's funny because the Liberals know that, they'll yell at me about being against women's rights. The only reason I'm the chair of status of women is because I'm pro-choice. But for myself, I just look at it and I think we have said that we're not bringing forward legislation. It's about turning the page, and I think that's why we saw that. We saw the same thing today with an SO31. It's going to be about turning the page away from what the Liberals have done in the last 3.5 years. So they want to put in this divisive issue. It's something, Conservatives, they want us to bite. We're not biting.
Yeah, yes, I understand your point, but, you know, there are private members' bills as well as government bills.
Correct.
And your leader has said that he wouldn't stop that, you know. And rights, you know, are eroded. They just don't disappear all at once. It is a slow process. So let me ask you, what did you feel about this sort of standing ovation yesterday? And your Conservative colleagues, here you have a colleague who's telling you, no, actually, I am a pro-choice, but I didn't stand up.
Well, I think this is something that many Canadians are watching very carefully. And when we hear the Conservatives say, you know, we're not going to open this up again, that really isn't the discussion. I really appreciate what you said about rights erode over time. So it is important that we look at the key issue, which is every person in this country has a right to their own body. The people who have to make decisions about having an abortion have a right to do that in a safe way, in an accessible way. There's a lot of people across this country who don't have access to safe abortion. They have to leave their communities. Sometimes they have to find the resources themselves. So that right isn't already 100% across this country in a fair and equitable way. So it has to be beyond, we're not going to talk about this, or if a private member's bill, it is a stand saying every person in this country has a right to make decision about their body, and that is a fundamental right in Canada. And any kind of motion that moves towards eroding that is a serious place that we should all be standing up for that right.
So let me ask you this, Matt DeCourcey, as the Liberal and the token guy here today. The Conservatives have said that this is a Liberal ploy, that you want to bring this on the table. It's not an issue at all. You're playing with one of these issues, and you're fear-mongering. Is that what you're doing?
Well, first of all, I want to respect the view that Karen brings to this panel and acknowledge her view on this matter. It's regrettable, though, that we're having to have this issue at a time when we're seeing the rollback of women's rights in neighboring regions to Canada, and at a time where Mr. Scheer, the leader of the Conservative Party and the leader of the opposition, cannot clearly state whether he fully respects a woman's right to choose. We saw 12 Conservative MPs attend anti-choice rallies a number of weeks ago, rallies with the sole purpose of gathering support to roll back the hard-earned rights that were gained by women 30 years ago. Mr. Scheer may have said that he would not introduce a bill to reopen this debate, but he has not said that he would allow a backdoor opportunity for one of his backbench MPs to present a private member's bill that would reopen this debate and put women under threat. Women are feeling under threat across this country, and we're asking Mr. Scheer to be clear that he would not allow any of his backbench MPs to introduce a private member's bill that would reopen this debate and start the erosion of women's rights in Canada.
I can tell you that with the Conservative caucus that you have some of the strongest women in Parliament that would not allow this type of erosion to go. There is people like Michelle Rempel,
Mr.
Lisa
Scheer
Raitt.
should say so.
Yes.
But you know something, we stand there. People are expecting, the thing is, when we look at
He's
this
your
entire...
leader, Karen. He
Let me
should say
finish.
so.
Let me finish. As we're discussing these things, we have to look at the pro-life movement. And, you know, I do have respect for religious freedoms. I really do, and conscious rights. I really do. And I think that's what makes this discussion sometimes, for me, easier to have, because I do try to look at both sides. There's not a right or wrong answer to this one. I think sometimes...
There is. It's about rights. It's about rights. It's about the dignity of women.
When I'm talking about right or wrong, I'm saying there are some people, I saw a sign, some people are saying late-term abortions. Well, you know, let's have this, if you're having this conversation, you can't just say it's this or this. I am 100% women's rights. I have 5 beautiful nieces, 2 beautiful daughters, and I myself will always fight for women's rights on that.
So colleagues.
You know something? I am willing to fight for women's rights, and that's what matters, because I have a strong voice and many members in our caucus.
Is Mr. Scheer, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. This is what women across this country are asking. Is your leader going to safeguard the right of women to access the reproductive rights that have been afforded to them through a series of fights over the last 30 years?
It's made up of people like ourselves. We are a big tent party, and I respect...
Including the 12 MPs who attended anti-choice rallies.
Okay, anti-choice, they're called pro... Listen, you can cut it whichever way you wish.
You know what? I want to...
You know what?
I
opened such a debate.
But he has not opened it.
Listen, I totally get the passion of this debate, 100%, having 2 daughters myself and so on. But
I think it's fear-mongering. I really do, because I am a strong...
Women are fearful because they have not heard clarity from
I've
Mr.
had
Scheer
people
whether
from the
he would
Liberal
allow
Party-
the back
okay, maybe we can move on to... Hello.
in the House of Commons.
Okay. Let's move on to today's visit,
Yes.
which is also important. I totally understand the passion of this debate, and I know that we won't solve it here today.
Absolutely
And I
not.
also understand the respect for religious freedoms as well. So
Thank you.
I get that. Actually, I truly do get that. But
Yeah.
I feel like in Canada, we've moved on.
Many Canadians do as well, though,
Yes.
in that case. Yeah.
But